Okay, we are live. The Sports Hit List, ladies and gentlemen, by the fans and for the fans. Carl Coulange here. We have a very special guest to join us on the Sports Hit List podcast. We have Laurence Seymore from Miami Central High School, who is committed to the University of Miami Hurricanes. Laurence, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me.
Let me introduce the rest of my contributors. We have Mr. Numbers, Andres Rivas, who's a Miami native. He had to wear his jersey today. Andres, how you doing, bro?
Doing amazing, Carl. Thank you for having me once again. Appreciate you.
And Chuck, a.k.a. Pops, is pulling a trip ahead of today in the first time on our live history. Chuck, how you doing, bro?
Pretty good. Sports is coming back soon. I'm pretty hyped, but I'm ready to talk football.
Yeah. So, Laurence, how's everything going during this tough time of dealing with COVID and everything going on?
Right now, everything is being regular. Only thing that has stopped is school and football. I still been working out, just doing me.
Mm-hmm. Andres, you have a question for him?
Yeah, absolutely. So this year, you have a new offensive coordinators, Rhett Lashley, and the Mustangs last year, they were 13th in yards per game and 7th in points per game. How do you think, what got you to commit to Rhett Lashley and the culture of Miami?
First, it started off my grandma had passed. She was like a Hurricane fan. So, and Miami was the first to believe in me. So that's why I committed early. Like, it really had nothing to do with like the team. It's like at Miami, it's like a brotherhood. It's like once you lead there, you always have like you always have a chance to come back and see the program and how I get better and stuff. Like I think that was a big choice why I picked Miami too.
Do a lot of students make that early decision, or do they kind of wait until their senior year to make a decision?
Well, everybody got their own decision. You can pick out early if you want to pick it. Mm. So I just picked mine early so I can get over with.
Mm-hmm. Chuck, do you have a question for Laurence?
Yeah. So has the pandemic affected the recruiting process in any way? And was it always your first choice to go to Miami?
I'll say yes, because when I was there, it's basically when I was there, it was like on my back said, "Am I going to commit?" Because they heard I was going to commit on that date, and that's basically it. But with the like what's going on right now, it's not really hurting the recruitment because like if you already mentioned at school, like schools you got offers from, there's really no like. To me, it's everything the same to me, so it don't really matter to me.
Have they spoke to you about the fall season coming up and what's going to happen with you guys actually playing? Is everything set to go for the fall, or is everyone still a little nervous about with everything going on with the pandemic?
They saying we're gonna start back up in the fall, but we really don't know like what date. They got all different types of date we're gonna start, so we really don't know yet.
Right. Andres, you have another question?
Yeah, absolutely. Have you gotten to meet QB1 Derek King yet?
No, not yet. I ain't meet him yet.
Oh, I don't know if you've seen like his tapes on Instagram, but that man's been putting in work. I don't know if you've seen him in person or anything. Does his tape like on Instagram and stuff like do him justice from what you've seen?
Yeah, he seemed like he's pretty good. I seen a couple of his little highlights on Instagram. He posted, but yeah, he looked pretty good to me.
Laurence, could you talk to us a little bit about playing high school football? What's your normal week like for you? Is it a lot of training and also trying to balance your schoolwork?
Really, it's nothing to it. You just like all we would hit a lot. We barely work out, like lift weights. So like Central, we like a pound hard team. So we hit every day like a normal football, but it's more like aggressive because like like when you get ready for that big, it's like basically you playing for Bama. Imagine a high school that's like Bama.
Mm-hmm.
So like whatever Bama doing, we probably do the same thing that they doing.
Mm-hmm. Chuck,
but
do you have another
school part of it?
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's all right. As an offensive guard, how would you rate your pass blocking, your run blocking, picking up like a blitz or a scheme? Does reading the playbook how long would it take for you, let's say, to read the playbook and just pick up on everything like technique and whatever?
It don't take me long. I can really pick up a defense. Like whatever you like my coach, he'll give me anything, like any defense, and now he'll tell me run a play that could beat this defense, and I'll pick up on it fast. So like I'm not a read your linebackers and D line, but safety to stuff, I don't know how you read that stuff yet.
Okay.
What got you into football? Out of all the sports to play, why football? Why wasn't it basketball or baseball, running track? What drew you to football?
I actually played basketball and football. I actually played basketball and I did track. So, but football was always that sport for me, I think. But at one point, I was going to stop playing. When my grandma had passed, it had to turn to motivation. I became the person I am today. And I'm still growing.
Mm. Oh, well, I'm sorry to hear that about your grandmother. My condolences. I know for me, and I know Andres, grandmothers are everything. And I can definitely attest to how much important my grandma played in my life. So just to have that inspiration for you, I'm sure is amazing.
Yeah.
Andres?
Last year the Canes were 52nd in yards per game, and the O-line was like, I think 71st in the whole country. Like, what do you think you could like bring to this culture to like get us back to like the top 15, top 10, and maybe even make a run for the chip this year?
I would bring a lot of leadership, aggression, and that's basically it. Leadership and aggression to the team. Like, I'm one of them aggressive players on the field, but off the field, I'm a cool person. That's it.
Have you met Manny Diaz?
Say it again.
Have you spoke with Coach Manny?
Have I talked to him?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, I talked to him. When I last time I talked to him, like 2 days ago, he had called me and seen what I was doing.
So what do you have any NFL players that you look up to that you try to, model your game after, or do you have any NFL players that are inspirations to you in your young career?
Larry Allen. Yeah, Larry Allen, that's a player who I try to model my game after. He's a short, aggressive person.
Chuck?
Well, Miami is probably the most storied college football team in history, or at the very least, one of the most storied. But they haven't had the success recently that they had, back in the day. So how are you going to attempt to bring back that history of winning to Miami?
It's just that comes with people you surround yourself with. So that's why I've been talking to a lot of dudes trying to come to Miami. That's why I want to make the decision to come to Miami. That's why Miami been blowing up with like different commitments. But it's still like a work in progress to bring people around you. It's basically who you have around you to make that run.
Do you know of anybody else who committed early like you to Miami yet? Or like have you talked to any other people in the football circle down there that have committed just like you to Miami, or no?
Well, I was the one who committed that early. But you have other commits like Ja'Cory Hammett, Romello, Khalil, that's it.
Elijah.
Oh yeah, and Elijah. I forgot about him.
Is it safe to say that you're a Dolphins fan, or no?
More, I like the Saints and the Ravens for me.
The Saints and the Ravens. Okay. That's different. Chuck, I know that's not the Jets, Chuck. I'm sorry, man.
It's all right. It's cool.
Andres, you have any other follow-up questions?
Absolutely. Well, personally, you know that FSU is must-watch TV. Whether the record is 0-10 and 10-0, it's a must-watch game. In the last 3 years, we've been successful. Is there any other game besides that FSU game that excites you, that you're like, I can't wait to play that game, like the MSU game?
Well, when I get there, the most exciting game I want to play is Alabama. That's the first game when I get there. So I'll look ahead to play Alabama. My first game. That's the only game I really want to play.
Chuck, any final questions?
Yeah, of course. So playing in the Atlantic Coast Conference. You know, you got the likes of Clemson, Florida State, and so on and so on. Are you excited to play against these teams? Is there anybody that you have circled besides of Florida State, or is there anybody who you're excited to line up against?
No, I just play against anybody put me in front of. I really don't care who you are. I'm just gonna play ball.
That's pretty amazing. Laurence, do you have any final thoughts here before we wrap up? You'd like to say?
Want to say it again?
I said, do you have any final thoughts or anything you'd like to say as we wrap up the segment?
I'm good. I'm straight.
Well, congratulations on your early commit to Miami Hurricanes. Thank you for joining us here on the Sports Hit List podcast. Make sure you stay safe, and we'll definitely be following your career when you make it big. Make sure we get the first exclusive.
All right.
All right. Take care, man.
Thank you, Laurence.
No problem.
It's all about the you.
Shit.
As I still have here, Chuck and Andres. Are you guys big college football followers, or is it one of those sports that we really don't tend to pay close attention to?
Well, as a kid, it's hard to not say that you were watching Tim Tebow every weekend, but I just couldn't follow up with Florida. You know, I'm not that Florida guy. You couldn't pay me to root for the Gators. You couldn't pay me to root for the Seminoles. So, you know, my dad would always be like, listen, we're not Gators fans, we're Hurricanes fans. So as a kid, you know, you don't understand much because like there's like a gazillion players playing college football, so it's hard to say.
Yeah.
As I got older and stuff, I even started like texting my friends. I'm like, listen, like I want to know more about college football. So like I started watching like Jameis Winston's mixtape. You know, he led the Seminoles to that title. He went berserk. Cam Newton also, Andrew Luck, you know. So I started like gathering more information. But like football, it's a lot of position and a lot of things that I'm still learning, but I definitely do keep up with it, and I'm trying to learn more every day because, you know, there's always room to learn for every sport.
Yeah. Chuck, being in the hit list for a while now, college football is kind of the sport that we really don't talk about as much. You know, could we have a bigger draw for college football in our daily discussions?
Well, I think we could, but I think the problem with college football is that it's more city oriented. Like here in New York City, we don't have like a college football team.
Yeah.
Syracuse.
Right. But Syracuse, but that's all the way up north. So I think it's tough for us here in the city. But if you go down to, let's say, Alabama, Clemson, Auburn, Miami, like these are big
Texas.
college towns, and there are
Yeah.
college fans, you know, everywhere. Like I'm a USC fan because, you know, back in the day, I was always attracted to players that wore the number 9 because 9 was my number. So when I watched Carson Palmer on a Sunday and saw that he went to USC, I was like, oh, all right, USC. So I started watching USC games. And of course, I was lucky enough to watch Matt Leinart, Reggie Bush, and all those guys, and they went on to win two championships. So that started my USC fandom, and I followed them through, you know, going back to Mark Sanchez, Matt Barkley, John David Booty, and so
Sam
on.
Darnold.
And so forth. Yes, Sam Darnold, and now I'm a Jets fan, so it's been played perfectly so far. But I mean, I'm always down to talk sports, and I love college football. I think the rivalries are great, and it's nice to see, you know, these kids because once they graduate, we're going to be watching them every Sunday. So it's nice to see now Joe Burrow, who I just watched, go undefeated and possibly have the best QB season by a college quarterback in college football history. Now I get to watch him every Sunday play for the Bengals, and then next year we get to watch Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. So it's a pretty cool experience to see.
Now, you mentioned one thing about how it's big down south. Imagine it this year with no fans, and how much of an impact we know college students, college fans, and alumni from different schools who represent their school colors not being able to go to the stadiums this year to represent their teams. I mean, yeah, you could do it from home and you could still have your party and tailgate from home, but how much fun does that? It's not the same. How much of a impact does that hit college football going into the fall?
Well, I think it's going to hit them hard because down there they live, breathe, and sleep college football. Like that's their life from the end of August to
January,
the
December.
Yeah. So like that's all they know, and this is what they look forward to. Is that like they start tailgating like possibly like 6 a.m. They're already out there in the parking lot, having beers and whatnot. So I think it's going to be a big change for them down south. And I personally still think that they're going to show up to the stadium and just do whatever.
Andres, what are your thoughts on that? College football in the new social distance era of sports.
It's definitely going to take a hit. I think that, people like to say that momentum doesn't exist in sports. It's all BS. But like when you watch like college football games and you hear the fans like go berserk, it has to have like some type of influence on the game. So I think the whole no fans thing is a big thing, and it's gonna affect the play maybe because like you look for when you're crumbling, you look for help in the crowd. We've seen like in the NBA teams be down by like 20 plus, 30 plus points, and they get their feed from the crowd. They cut the game to like 6 points, or even in football. And in the 28-3 in the 2017 Super Bowl, they were playing on a neutral site, but you could hear the Patriots fans being loud. And once they scored that first 2-point conversion, the Patriots looked at each other like, hey, we can win this game. So they started keep on going and going and going until they eventually, they won their 5th Super Bowl. So I think the fans in the college football term has a big influence. And the same thing that Chuck was saying as far as football in the South, I've seen 3 titles for the Miami Heat. But if I see like Derek King bring a championship this year or Tua Tagovailoa bring a championship like 2-3 years, Miami's going to go berserk. You know what I mean? Don't get me wrong. The Heat had a great influence on basketball and, and shaping the culture with like guys like Wade, LeBron, and Bosh. But like when it comes to football, I just feel like it's more nationally known, and at a state level, it's also more known. Because like you have like the Orlando Magic, and people don't really pay attention to them. But like when it comes to football, everyone down there like breathes football. So I feel like if Derek King or Tua brings the title sometime soon, the whole state is going to go berserk. It's going to go on lockdown.
It's just so convenient that on the 10th anniversary of LeBron going to Miami, you had to mention the Miami Heat in a football conversation.
I wasn't planning on that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We know what the narrative is. Listen, it is what it is. You're a Miami guy, so you just had to throw out that you've seen 3 championships, and we're talking about college football, right, Chuck? It's just so convenient.
Exactly. It's terrible.
Listen, the way football gets consumed down south is definitely bigger than basketball.
Oh, definitely.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Andres, thank you for joining us here on this segment. We'll see you down the road. I know you're working on that Kareem segment. Please look out for that. That should be coming soon. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Carl. Always a pleasure.
You're watching the Sports Hit List by the fans and for the fans, or live on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. Chuck is staying around because he's pulling a triple header today. And now let's bring in our hockey guys. Let's bring in Mike and Andrew to talk some NHL. There's some social issues going on. Chuck, what's going on with the NHL right now?
Hockey is such a dominantly white sport. Like, there's not too many African American players in the league. But recently, to combat the social issues we had in the country, some of the players created the Hockey Diversity Alliance, and what it's going to do is it's going to help the inner cities, and it's going to have these players try to get more kids to come and play hockey, because hockey is such an expensive sport, and I'm sure that Mike and Andrew can attest to that. Like equipment is no joke, like cheap at all, and plus when you factor in travel teams as well, you're looking at like a couple of grand per year. So I think it's going to be good to try to outreach the sport to a more broader audience, because I think hockey is such a great game, and the more kids that you get involved in the game is just going to bring bigger ratings to the sport.
Mike, are you here? Can you hear me?
Hi, how are you?
How's it going? Andrew, how you doing, bro?
How you doing?
Could you guys elaborate a little bit more about what Chuck was talking about?
Okay, well, first off, like what he said about the equipment, I mean, you can easily spend $1,000 just to be ready to play. And if something breaks, that's just an extra added cost. So like the sport being as expensive as it is, it definitely takes away from people playing it. So that is a major factor.
Andrew, do you agree with the new social issues initiative going on in the NHL?
Well, I got to piggyback off of what Chuck said, is that compared to the other 3 sports, hockey has a very limited reach. It's more of a game for people who live in colder climates. It's a bit of a stretch if you're going to get somebody from Miami or or Texas to get heavily into the game. However, with Austin Matthews, the star player from the Toronto Maple Leafs, being a Scottsdale, Arizona kid, you have your poster boy for reaching out and creating a new demographic for the sport. Also, hockey is predominantly white, and like Chuck said, they made initiatives to make the game more diverse, introduce the game to a new audience. I'm happy to say that the biggest Greek name in hockey, Andreas Athanasiou, is half
Great
Indo
pronunciation, by the way.
Thank you. I can't mispronounce that. It won't. I'll never hear the end of it. He's not full Greek. He's half Greek, and the other half is Indo-Guyanese, which totally blew my mind. So there is hidden diversity, but it would be great if there was more.
Now, when we talk about diversity in hockey, it all starts with the youth. In our tri-state area, is hockey really a sport that a local kid wants to say, hey, I want to play hockey? Or, do they have to compete with your basketball and football and baseball? Chuck?
Well, I think the problem is that the game is just so expensive. So if your parents can't afford to, buy equipment and have you pay for a travel team and take you all over the tri-state area, you're probably not going to play. Whereas though with like basketball, I mean, you really don't need anything besides a pair of sneakers
and shorts.
Yeah, of course. Well, and then when you look at baseball, all you need is like a glove, bat, and helmet, and then you're set. Football is where you're gonna need pads and helmets and everything, but that cost isn't the same as playing hockey. And I think hockey is more of a sport, whereas though you have to go to all these showcases and everything because there isn't like a league in the tri-state area where scouts are gonna come to watch. Like in our area, is there really a league that we all know about that we're like, oh wow, like if I have a kid, I want them to play for that league? Yeah, they have teams around the tri-state area, but there isn't like these big leagues. Whereas though football, you got Pee Wee and everything, and then baseball, you have Little League. Basketball, you got CYO, AAU. So there isn't like a known hockey league. Whereas though you want to sign your kids up, and if you do go sign your kids up to go play at either the Aviator or at or the rink out in Long Island, I can't think of the name right now. If you want to go there, you're going to be paying thousands of dollars. So if your parents can't afford it, you're not going to play.
Mm-hmm. Mike, we've seen some practices shut down due to the virus. What are your thoughts on that? Should hockey still try to continue, or are we going to start seeing more shutdowns?
No, they definitely should try to continue, because if they don't, they're going to lose a couple $100 million on top of the few $100 million they've lost already. So I don't think you can just outright go and say, that's it, we're shutting it down, because we all know for a fact that next season isn't going to start on time, most likely anyway, even if that happens. So it's really what it comes down to is recouping lost money. So I think they're going to go on and play. And especially with the testing protocols that they're putting in place, I think they're doing a pretty good job. And I really honestly think for the first time since the pandemic started that they are going to play, and it's going to be safe to play.
Andrew, what are your thoughts? Should they continue on and try to truck on, or because we're seeing some of these practices shut down, should they just call it a season?
Tough question for me. I'm aching for the sport to come back. I need to see that cup hoisted. If it becomes a severe problem where it's going to be like it's just going to be an onslaught of new cases developing, then I would go back to the drawing board. If it's just like a handful of people, or if like the Blues had to shut down their practice facility the other day, if it's something that it's like a speed bump and we can like move through it, then by all means. But if this is going to become like another ongoing issue, then back to the drawing board.
Chuck, what are your thoughts on that, on the practices getting shut down?
Well, I think that to take the precaution now and all of the safety protocols that they have in place, which I think the NHL and the NHL Players Association has done a phenomenal job so far doing all of this. And I think that even though you have positive cases now, I don't think you should shut down just yet, because it could be contained. So right now they're having limited practices, no more than 6 guys or whatever. I think phase 3 starts on the 10th, which is in a couple of days. So that's when teams are gonna be fully coming in at 100% capacity. So I think that by testing guys constantly and then gearing them up to go play in the hub cities, I think they're doing a good job as of right now. But if the cases get too out of hand, then that's when you have to consider shutting it down.
Have you had any players voluntarily drop out and say that they're not going to play, or has everyone been on board?
I'm pretty sure that list is set to come out once the voting is over for the tentative agreement with the CBA, which that voting is going on right now.
As we speak right now, live?
So
over the course of today, tomorrow, and Friday.
Yeah, so no known player has dropped out as far as I know. So everyone is fully on board. They're set to play. I believe that if the CBA and everything gets ratified, they have until a certain date to say whether they want to play or not.
All right. Andrew, I could tell your excitement for sports to come back. Chuck, I could tell your excitement. Jesus, I don't know, man. Are you not excited for your facial expression? Like we're having a conversation and you're just like, all right, like it's just like you're mute. So, are you excited to have hockey back or no?
Oh, absolutely. I'm just tired. I'm always tired. You know that.
No, I get it. Right.
We've come so far. It's been March.
Listen, I understand.
Is the final countdown.
Listen, I understand it, but again, it does raise the question when you see a lot of practice facilities, even in the NBA, when you see all these concerns, it does make you question, like, can this actually happen? And again, I'm of the mindset. Until it has to be seen to believe it.
Right.
Again, so I'm still in that mindset for sports right now. So you're seeing a lot of the positive stuff that they're doing to try to get us to that point, but then you're also seeing a lot of practices get canceled. And you also have Adam Silver saying, if we do have enough of these cancellations, they're going to shut down. And once we know one league shuts down, it's basically like a ripple effect. Everybody else starts to shut down.
Well, what I mentioned last time was that I think it's huge to have the hub cities in Canada where it's not as big of an issue there as it is here. So I think they could get away with it. I think by having the players, come back now and not traveling to their hub cities just yet, I think it still gives them time to go through everything. And also when the playoffs start, you're going to have a third of the teams eliminated within the first week. So that's already going to break it down to only having 16 teams remaining. So I think they're doing a good job, whereas though they're trying to be as cautious as possible while trying to move forward at the same time.
Mike, any follow-ups to that, to Chuck's points?
Yeah, I just remembered with the rules they put in place with the bubble, every specific player who needs to leave the bubble for whatever reasons to get medical care, so on and so forth, if they don't have the NHL's permissions, they're gone. They're done for the rest of the playoffs. So. And it ranges from also penalizations from fines to a loss of draft picks. So I think the NHL is doing this right, that they're going to pretty much make everyone stay under control while they're in the bubble, not to get everything all scrambled. You know what I mean?
Andrew?
Yeah, it's a matter of time now. It's if player, I'll repeat what I said, is if more cases come out and it's looking more and more like, okay, here's another round of Corona, then cancel it. And then maybe we'll come back in January and do what we did in 2013 and have a shortened season. Mm-hmm. If there's only a handful, then by all means, let's play. Let's quarantine the players. And maybe the NHL teams can figure out a way to get a better handle on things.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining me here for the hockey segment. Back-to-back weeks for hockey. You guys are really trying to make some noise in the sports.
Okay, now, Carl, mark my words. Hockey will be the first sport to return, and it could possibly be the only sport to return.
Wait till the playoffs start,
is that
Carl.
A bold prediction there, Chuck?
Bold prediction. It will definitely be the first sport. Actually, well, they do got baseball that's supposed to start a week earlier, but I think hockey has a real chance to start and finish.
Wow. Are you guys going
the hockey hit list?
The hockey hit list. Thank you guys for joining me. Take care. We'll talk to you guys soon. Chuck is sticking around. Andrew's sticking around for baseball, right?
Yeah, wardrobe change.
Oh, okay. Live. This guy's doing a wardrobe change live on camera. What is going on here?
Carl, at least he doesn't do it in front of the actual camera.
Right. Well, he did it. He did it pretty quickly. Thanks, Mike. We'll talk to you soon,
Gotta
man.
be like NASCAR, baby.
All right, let me bring in TK the Tank and Travis. You're watching the Sports Hit List live on the Worldwide Sports Radio Network. For the first time on our live, we had a wardrobe change. Andrew had to switch in and switch out. So that was pretty funny and entertaining to see. Let's meet TK the Tank. Tom Kenny's in the building. Tom, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Carl. How's it going?
All right, everything good?
Everything's great. Everything's great. Sorry, I missed you there for a second, and then I came back.
It's all good. Travis, can you hear me, bro?
I can hear you, man. I'm sorry. Is my video a little too dark? No, I'm better now. Okay. Yeah, I can hear you. Sorry, I'm a little tardy.
Well, the first question I gotta ask TK, Team Carl or Team Ray? We need to start knowing what's going on in the Sports Hit List because there's a lot of people turning and switching sides. TK, where's your allegiance?
All right, so this is simple, okay? This is simple, and you guys can make all the videos you want. It's nice, but there's only one team that matters. There's only one team that I could possibly pick to be on, and that's Team Carl. All the way, Carl.
Man, thank you.
Come on. Ray Jarvis, he could make his little NW overrated videos and do all these things that mean absolutely nothing.
Say it louder for the people in the back. Say it louder. Say it louder.
Like old school Celtics footage, it just doesn't mean anything. Carl Coulon's the professor, comes, shows his face, spits his promo all the time. I mean, come on, how could you pick anyone else, Carl?
Travis, where's your allegiance, man? Where's your allegiance? You going with Carl? Listen, I've known you since we were 6, brother.
Come on,
so
man.
where's your allegiance?
Let me go. So I've known you for like almost 90% of my life, right? But with the flag being brought into it, with nationalities being brought into it, with a lot of Zopound talk for those that know what that is, I'm Jamaican. So naturally, I have to go on the opposite side. So unfortunately, I'm Team Ray, Jamaican flag up for everybody.
Wow. Okay. All right. Team Ray and Team Carl.
And in this summer, I'm taking my talents to Almont and joining Team Carl.
That's what I'm talking about. Here we go.
There we go.
Carl, just because I am Team Carl does not mean that the Celtics were not overrated because they are.
Oh, my goodness. Listen, we're not going to turn to that debate. We're here to talk about baseball. But for the fans who don't know what we're talking about, July 22nd at 4 o'clock live, Carl Coulon versus Ray Jarvis. Are the 2008 KG era Celtics overrated? Please make sure you tune in for the big debate. It's been going on in the group. Make sure you guys tune into it. I can't wait for it. I'm hyped. I know Ray is hyped. And the fans are hyped about it, cutting the promos back and forth. It's been wonderful television. But, guys, today we're here to talk some baseball. We saw the schedule release. Chuck went on the record to say that the Yankees will go 58-2. Travis, do you believe that's true or not?
Is that based on the schedule release or is that
Yes. Yeah, that's based on the schedule release. Yeah.
We're doing a football wins loss. I disagree staunchly.
Okay.
You want me to elaborate on that? I mean,
yeah, if you can. Yeah, sure.
Okay, 58-2. I mean, I need to elaborate on that. I mean, no, that streaks like that don't happen in baseball. It's too random of a sport. If I'm answering this question seriously, it's too random of a sport. But will the Yankees be good in a short sprint? They will.
Okay, Tom.
Exactly. To make the World Series.
Okay, Tom, would you go with that 58-2? I know that's hard for a Met fan to admit, but could you see that happening?
58-2, no, because they do play the Mets 6 times. And the Mets will beat them more than twice. But the Yankees, they'll finish just fine. They're going to finish strong. I think 10 games above 500, 35-25. I think that's pretty reasonable. I think that's where they fall. Who knows? Could be plus or minus 3 or 4 games there. But the schedule's not terrible for them. They only face the NL East and the AL East pretty much. And, that means you got the Marlins, you got the Orioles, you got all these teams to kind of just feed on. So we'll have to see.
Andrew, what's your record for the Mets after looking at the schedule?
Well, they only play 60 games, so they can't collapse after that. I'm hoping I hope they get to the 40 mark. Again, if anybody saw the debut episode of the Andrew Vantage show, I said
shameless plug. I hear that. I see it, Andrew.
60 games is not enough to know who your baseball team is. It's 2 months of baseball, and you just got to hope that your team is good at that getting the feet wet mark.
All right, Chuck, Was that prediction about the Yanks true, or were you just trying to get some clout?
It was more of a it was more of a joke because I always want the Yankees to go 60-0, so I had to make it a little bit believable. But in all honesty, after seeing their record, I'm sure they're gonna go maybe around like 40-20, I would say. And I say this because their last like 30 games, or I believe like 20-25 games, somewhere in that range, the only teams that they play are the Orioles, the Blue Jays, the Red Sox, the Mets. Like, these are all teams that stink. So I think if they start off hot, they could finish really well down the stretch.
Now, looking at
watch out for the Mets.
I mean, yeah, come on now, Carl. I know you're a fake Yankees fan, but don't let him come off the top rope like that.
No, not at all. Not at all. I actually had a follow-up question. But if you want to elaborate, go ahead, Travis.
Yes, thank you very much. The Mets set up of course, the year that first world problems, but of course, the year they Mets set up perfectly to make a nice deep run in the postseason. Something happens to the season, but I digress. The Mets are set up very with their pitching staff, with the improvements to the bullpen, with the way the lineup shakes out. It's a very balanced lineup, and again, the Mets' troubles are not really, as we know, pitching at all. We could score some runs. We were pretty much on the cusp. If it wasn't for 21 blown leads last year, we were on the cusp of making the playoffs last year. So I really feel like the Mets are set up, jokes aside, to make a deep run into the postseason in the 60 game or the 162. Either way, we had it. But thank you for letting me get in.
No problem. Do you guys believe that the schedule was done fairly? Was there any bias towards a specific team when you looked at the schedules? TK?
I mean, I feel like they're just trying to make something work. I feel like they definitely, they're going to shoehorn in the Subway Series type games, and they're going to make sure those happen. But like I said, it's pretty much just AL East and NL East getting formed into one big mega East division, and they pretty much just play each other. So I can't really complain if they keep it that even. But going back to the Mets real quick, you could have extra hitting if Yoenis Cespedes is able to come back in any sort of DH way. That really could help the Mets out. That's why I think a lot of people are overlooking him. He's looked pretty big, pretty strong here in the first couple of days. So if you can get any kind of value out of him,
it's a walk here too. He hits great in years. His contract's going to be up. So
exactly. So he might come in for 60 games and just tear it up, be healthy. I mean, you got pitching. You don't have to worry about innings limits. I think this season's really set up for the Mets to do well in a short burst.
Chuck, what are your thoughts on what the Mets fans have to say?
Well, I think the Mets are a good team. I mean, more than what I've been giving them credit for, but I think that too much depends on the health of their team. They already lost Syndergaard, so now they really need Matz, Walker, and Rick Porcello to step up, because behind those guys, what depth do the Mets really have? Like, do they have a 6-7 star that can just step in and be productive?
We'll just get Bartolo back.
So I think that's what, and then back to their lineup, you need Cano to stay healthy, you need Cespedes to stay healthy, you need Jed Lowry to actually make somewhat of an appearance in a game.
Yeah.
And then you factor in the bullpen as well. You need Diaz to have a big bounce back season. You gave up Kalenic, Dunn, and everybody just for this guy to go blow. How many saves did he blow last year? So I think they really need a lot of guys to step back up. So I don't know if they will be able to do it, but that's why I'm so down on the Mets, because I don't know if their depth could hold up in case if these guys go down with injury.
Aside from the New York local teams, Andrew, is there any sleeper picks to make it out and win? I mean, it's a fair game. Everyone's playing 60 games. Everyone's playing with no fans. Would there be another team that you could possibly toss into the mix to make it to the World Series and win?
Honestly, I can't give that to you because this is like ancient wrestling. Me and Carl know, like, regional promotions in like certain areas. So again, you have the NL East versus the AL East, and it works for MLB because you get those regional matchups that the country likes, like Mets, Yankees, Cubs, White Sox, Angels, Dodgers. You have all that, and you have all these interesting interleague matchups, but they're all regional. And plus, like the Marlins, they don't have to worry of traveling the country and getting blown out 11-zip or losing 7 or constantly losing and then like hoping to catch up and already be like 35 games out of first place. They have a chance to make noise because each game is against their division. So who knows, honestly, with the 60 games and the regional matchups. Plus 60 games, that's all the Mets need. They played 61. That's when it starts. That's when it starts. I know the pain
Like
too
that.
well.
TK, did you want to follow up on that?
Well, yeah, there's like a lot of young teams. I think teams that aren't, the teams that don't have the huge payrolls and the unsatisfied players. You can see a team like that really make a run. Looking at teams like maybe the San Diego Padres, the Oakland Athletics, teams like that that have had a historic past of doing well and overachieving with little funds to speak of. So, or just a young team in general, I think could really surprise this year if you're looking outside the divisions.
Travis, over the last several weeks, we've discussed sports without fans in the other sports. And we just got off an interview with a football player, and we were talking about no fans. For baseball, how much does the players feed off of that fans' energy and not having that? So will that be a big factor, or could baseball be okay without having fans in the arena or in the stadium?
Well, I think that's a multifaceted question, because certain markets can function without fans. They already do, like the Marlins. That famous picture of the Royals Stadium last year, Royals Rays, I think it was like 10 people in the stands. Literally, it was counted. So yes, some markets will do fine without it. It's not going to affect. Baseball is a rocking chair sport. You know what I mean? So guys get in a rhythm and they just go out there and do their job. Now, in the big moments, like, will there be big moments? Like, it's hard to even but if there are juiced up moments and, fans dictate that, we're going to miss that in the World Series and other postseason games and games that will clinch the postseason. We're going to miss those tense moments, I think, without fans. But I think for the day-to-day, just watching the game, games 45, 35 through 45, we're not going to notice as much, in my opinion.
Chuck, do you agree with Travis?
Yeah, because when these guys play like Little League and high school, there isn't like packed stadiums, so they're already used to playing without the fans. And I think baseball is such an emotional game that where if a guy hits a home run, the whole dugout's going to go jumping, and now you're going to be able to hear everything. So I think teams that have players that are more energetic and more into the game are going to do well, because you get a rally going, your teammates are going to be hyped up. So you're going into that batter's box and that your team in the dugout is trying to get you hyped up and whatnot. So I don't think it's going to have that much of an impact, but I think it could become a situation when you make it to the postseason, because the fans have such a critical role in the postseason in any sport. So if when you have home field, you got that crowd going, especially with the Yankees, and you got the Yankee fans in October, the Bronx Zoo, so to say. I think that plays a critical role, but it's going to be very interesting to see.
Mm-hmm.
Also, to piggyback on our last two speakers, another thing Major League Baseball needs to factor in, considering there's no fans, is TV ratings. Like we mentioned that the Rays Tropicana Field is usually empty, and SunTrust is Atlanta. Marlins Park is usually empty, so you need to look at the TV ratings. Robert Manfred has been aching to expand the league, like give Montreal their team back, possibly put a team in Portland. So with the TV ratings in like the Florida markets or any other markets that show low baseball numbers, you might see some teams moving in like the next 5 years. So
well, you know what? This year is different because I think, and we've had this discussion among the sports hit list, we're itching for sports, no matter what it is. People want to see it. So whether it's baseball, whether it's hockey, whether it's basketball, whatever is on at any given point in time during this time, because we haven't had it since March, people are going to watch. So I think the ratings will be a little bit skewed because people are home and they're going to want to watch sports. They're going to want to watch something. So I think baseball numbers are definitely going to be up because of that.
Yeah, and Carl, to piggyback off your point, like I watched Cole pitch last night. Like I missed the sport so much that I watched Cole, and going off of my my feed on Twitter, there were hundreds of Yankee fans watching the same game just to watch Cole pitch, watch Judge hit, Stanton hit. So, the sport's going to be there for us to watch. And I think a lot of people are going to be tuned in, which means, TV ratings are going to be through the roof. And we already see it with golf. And to a lot of people, golf is such a boring sport, but golf's ratings have been up like 75% over the past like 3 tournaments. So people are going to sit down
for desperate measures, Chuck.
Right, exactly. So I think once sports start coming back, a lot of people are going to sit and be tuned in. And back to hockey real quick, they're going to be having games 12, 2, 4, 6, 8. So I'm going to be sitting on my couch in front of the TV all day just watching Stanley Cup playoff games.
Andrew, do you think they're going to use this year as a real litmus test to move teams around and expand? Do you think that would be fair to do, or do you think that it is fair because everybody's going to be home watching on the television? So if you don't rate, not to answer my own question, so if you don't rate, you deserve to move?
Listen, what I've noticed in this pandemic is that businesses that have still found the way to make money are taking care of the little things along the way. There are some great restaurants in my neighborhood and where I work that have shut down like their evening hours to renovate. They've gone above and beyond. So why not the professional sport leagues do the same? Why not test your numbers? Why not see, all right, there's no fans in attendance. Fox Sports Tampa, and I don't even know if that's their channel. I'm just using it as an example. Are people tuning in to Rays games? Are people watching the baseball team? You got to look at the TV numbers. I know New York City is going to be fine, obviously, because the Mets and Yankees have great fans. Phillies, Red Sox, Blue Jays. Like, do you want to put another team in Canada? Does the MLB look at what the NHL's doing? Do they like see like, all right, maybe we should like expand our horizons a little bit? Don't forget, Rob Manfred's cutting 42 minor league teams at the end of this year, or so he hopes, unless he's going to give them an extra year. So maybe the owners save up and they put that towards expanding Major League Baseball.
All right. Final thoughts here, guys. Does baseball really come back? Just knowing everything, and I'm of the mindset of I have to see it to believe it. I said the same thing in the last segment. Does it come back, or does this stop at some point because of us still dealing with the pandemic?
I would never kid myself. Sorry to cut you, Tom. I'll be quick.
No,
I would never kid myself to think that nobody knows anything about how this virus affects anything, right? Not to be negative. So I would never give a affirmative or a declination on that statement. So I don't have no idea, Carl.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, I just to bounce off his statement, you really can't tell. I mean, you already have guys. You have David Price. You have Ryan Zimmerman, Mike Leake. You have all these guys who aren't going to come play this season. They already said they're not coming. So just another couple, tips the wrong way. We could not have any sports at all this year. So just grateful for whatever we get, and we'll just have to wait and see.
Chuck?
I think baseball will start on time because we're only 2 weeks away from the start of the regular season. So unless something happens, which anything could happen at any given moment of the day, could affect it. But I think it does start on time. I think the problem they're going to run into is when these teams start traveling. Compared to the other sports, baseball doesn't have hub cities or anything. So these teams are going to be flying all across the country, to go from stadium to stadium. So I think that's where the challenge is going to come in. So I believe, yes, it will start on time, but I'm a little shaky on if we could complete a full 60-game season plus a postseason.
Andrew, I kind of know where you lie because you just want sports facts. So I know what you're going to vote.
But we're going to play. We got to play with the other four as well. We got to play it day by day, week by week. Worst case scenario, Mets go 5-0 and declared champion.
Yeah.
My question to you guys is, did anybody buy a cardboard cutout for the Oakland A's? And for those who don't know, the Oakland A's are offering cardboard cutouts that you could put in the seats, and the prices vary from nosebleeds to behind home plate. And
how much are they going for? How much are the cardboard cutouts going for?
I think I think 50 or 75 at the cheapest. I think the expensive is like a couple of hundred.
Yeah,
that's
high
crazy.
3 figures. And if a foul ball hits your cardboard cutout, you get the ball signed, and I think they match what you paid for it and donate the money to charity.
Listen, you have to give it up to the PR team for trying to come up with something creative to still keep the fans engaged. It is what it is at this point. Everyone's trying different things for their audiences. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me here on the Sports Hit List by the fans and for the fans. We'll keep in touch and see what we can come up with next week for next week's show. You guys take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks,
All
Carl.
right. TK is sticking around for the wrestling segment. It is Wrestling Wednesday. We had to end the show with pro wrestling. We didn't have a tape segment this week, but we are here to talk about some NXT and AEW, the battle of the Wednesday night wars. continues. We have Nick Maldonado. Nick, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing good. How you doing, Carl?
I'm hanging in there. We have Mike. Mike, how you doing, man?
Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you. Where's Zach? Is Zach around or is he still suspended? Yeah, it doesn't sound too good, does it there, Outlaw? Yeah, Outlaw doesn't seem to want to listen and pay attention, so that's why he has to outlive his suspension. For those who don't know, he has to listen. When he listens, things happen. You guys listen, right? Outlaw doesn't want to seem to listen. And if you guys want to go Team Outlaw, go right ahead, like I said.
Never, Carl, never.
All right, guys, so Wrestling Wednesdays is here. Part 2 of these special shows for AEW NXT. What are our thoughts about part 1, Nick?
I think both brands put on a phenomenal night one. NXT put on a great night one of the Great American Bash, and AEW matched it with a great night one of Fyter Fest. And I think that both cards for tonight are coming in to, if it's even possible, be better than night one.
TK, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean, you had night 1, NXT. They had that great match, Sasha Banks and Io, and you look over at AEW, Cody coming out with the Great American Bash type T-shirt and all this stuff that they're doing. Both really good, entertaining night ones. Really looking forward to tonight, though, especially NXT. Keith Lee versus Adam Cole. Very excited for the title versus title match. I think if that ends the show, that will be a great match to end the show and see what happens there. And on Fyter Fest, I'm a little foggy on what the main event is just because the NXT main event is just so great looking. I don't know,
It's Leish versus Orange Cassidy.
Oh God, don't.
Mike, what are your thoughts on both shows, man?
Both shows, they were tied. They had some good moments and then they had some bad moments, but I expect today to be better on NXT side. AEW, I do not expect to be better. You got Cage versus John Moxley was canceled, and then you're gonna have a guy who puts his thumbs up go up against a legend like Chris Jericho.
You know why Orange Cassidy wears those sunglasses? To block out haters like you.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Oh, that's a real good one. This is a throwback to February.
Guys, let me ask you a question. Do you guys have multiple devices that you're watching both at a time, or do you pick to watch one and then you DVR and then to watch the other one later?
Yeah, but I usually watch one live and watch one on DVR the next day. I can't focus on 2 shows at once.
Okay, TK, is that the same way you go too?
Yeah, I watch NXT live and then I'll catch up on AEW throughout the week.
Mike?
Yeah, I watch one channel.
You watch
NXT.
which one? And NXT. Well,
For
we
tonight.
know how you feel.
For tonight.
All right. But just knowing the backstory of how both shows came about, did WWE do the right thing by trying to counter with the American Bash? Because we know AEW was promoting their show weeks in advance, and all of a sudden, here comes NXT to basically try to counter it.
Well, I mean, it's obvious that WWE did that on purpose. But you got to realize that they have a lot of momentum right now because a show that they weren't expected to get over 100,000 more views than AEW, they did that. So creative is probably thinking, you know what? Let's continue with this theme, even if that means obviously copying them. They've also copied them on something else, the eye for an eye match that's going to go on. But at the end of the day, they want ratings. So if they're going to get ratings by copying, maybe fine, whatever.
I mean, at the end of the day, though, it's a business. And, I mean, obviously that, there's no losers in this situation that if they want to counter program AEW, NXT fans who don't watch AEW are getting an amazing, 2-week event. And if you like all wrestling, you get to watch 2 amazing shows. So really, there is no loser. Is it a little, Bush League, in my opinion? Yes, but sometimes you got to do what you got to do, especially in a ratings war.
TK?
What it really is, sorry, Carl. What it really is Vince McMahon is an absolute madman and he can't help himself. Of course he's going to counter program. Of course he's going to do this. He's Vince McMahon. How many years have we seen this for? He's out of his mind. He can't help himself. But like Nick says, you're getting 2 great shows, 2 pay-per-view quality shows, 2 weeks in a row on free TV by 2 different promotions. It's a great time to be a wrestling fan. So, I have no problem with that. And in terms of stealing ideas or ideas like that, I mean, there's been so many. It's just wrestling. It's all been around for generations. So,
is this the best time to really be a wrestling fan right now? I mean, I grew up in the era where you had WCW versus WWF or E, whatever you want to call it, with the Monday Night Wars. But now there's so much content. You have Monday Night Raw, you have AEW, you have NXT, you have SmackDown, you have New Japan Pro, other promotions. Is this really the best time to be a pro wrestling fan, Tom?
I'll tell you what, bro. Oh, go ahead, Tom.
All right, yeah, I'll let you go in a second, Mike. No, I don't think it is. I remember being a fan in the late 90s, the Attitude Era, and I'm not saying, the Attitude Era is the best, but you had Monday Night Raw for 2 hours on Monday, and then SmackDown came a little later, but you had to wait. You watched those 2 hours, and you had to wait. There was no Twitter. There was no daily updates. There was no, I know he plays a character, but I follow Kane on Twitter. It was, I mean, especially for me being 8, 9, 10 years old, it was so easy just to invest and totally buy into those characters. And even if you go back a little further, I watched on 4th of July, I watched T.A. Magnum versus Tully Blanchard for the United States title in a cage, and that took place in 1985, and those fans were going absolutely wild for just basic brawling, and it looked visceral and real. So I think back then it was a lot easier to get into. Now you might have more product to watch. It's the best time if you want to just watch multiple things. But I mean, just the internal investment you see just isn't there as much as it was 20, 30 years ago. So that's what I miss.
I think that's good when you said that, there's other products, because I know a lot of people that, obviously watched WWE, growing up, kind of faded away, and, then that's it. They're done. They don't watch wrestling anymore. But now, if that ever happened today, just say WWE is not meeting your needs, boom, you flipped on to AEW, or you flip on to New Japan, or if you like the the deathmatch style, watch CZW, pure wrestling, go back to New Japan. Like, there really is no way for you to fade away from wrestling in its entirety, because there's so many companies out there, so many different styles that fit really everybody's needs.
Mike, what are your thoughts on the industry as a whole?
I mean, I'll tell you what, wrestling is definitely not as popular as it once was. Ideas are being recycled. I grew up during the ruthless aggression era. I thought it was amazing, but once again, ideas are being recycled and going on and going on. Promotions are doing it. AEW is copying NXT sometimes. NXT will copy AEW at times. It's just the way things are. When you grew up, there was different ideas. Like, it was a revolution. Like, let's do this. Right now, it just kind of seems like, all right, let's keep it going as much as we can and let's recycle some ideas.
There's no new ideas. Are you kidding me?
Listen. I disagree. As much as Mike, I love your takes. I think I got to disagree with you on this one. I'm a firm WWE fan, but I do watch AEW, and I like what I see. And they are doing. There's only so much room for you to try to be different and come up with storylines. I don't think they're necessarily copying what
this?
WWE is doing. Say it again.
You like this?
That's just one example, though. Like, what about the match quality? One thing that they have going for them that I love and appreciate are great tag teams. WWE doesn't have that. And I love the AEW tag team division. I love that they have so many that most nights, if you watch Dynamite, they have 3 or 4 tag matches as opposed to having singles matches. WWE is not doing that.
This has got to be the most annoying thing ever. And this is why I'm glad that FTR are there, because they're there to prove a point. Those tag teams do not follow the damn rules, man. I'm so sick and tired.
Wait a minute. What rules? What rules are you talking? What rules do we have in wrestling?
When you tag, they'll stay inside the ring forever. There's a 10 count. Okay, when they go outside, again, there's a 10 count.
What are you talking about?
Doing the 10 count.
What? TK, can you check him? What is he talking about?
Watch a tag team match.
What is he talking? I watch tag team matches. What the hell are you talking about?
Pay attention to the AEW tag team. No, pay attention. Pay attention to a match in AEW. Pay attention.
But what are you talking about? The 10, I don't know. Like, Nick, can you explain? What is he talking about?
I think it means like when someone gets tagged in and then FTR is going to do their move where but remember Dudley and Bubba Ray, they do the thing where he holds his legs up, like maybe one of those type of moves. But like every tag team does that where they get their last licks in before they head out of the ring.
Yeah, exactly. They only have 10 seconds.
Right, but so what you're saying is for you go by the book that the person has to get out the ring among 10 seconds, and if they don't, it's a problem.
Yes.
Who cares?
The Blade and the Butcher gave their best match.
Who cares?
The Blade and the Butcher. The Blade and the Butcher gave their best match. Do you know why? Because they had FDR right there to do the good old-fashioned, let's tag, let's not take advantage of 10 counts. Let's not bury the referees.
TK,
let's do this. What do you mean?
TK, jump in here, man. Who cares? I don't care about that. Like, To be honest, as a wrestling fan, I have never paid attention to the 10 count if
Yeah,
a wrestler
they
gets
do,
in or
but-
gets out of the ring.
You're burying the refs.
He's in there for too long. Like, who does that? I mean, just enjoy.
Exactly.
Enjoy the.
TK, get in here, man. Please help us.
Well, I mean, technically, yeah, I believe it's actually it might even be a 5 count. But you're also supposed to hold on to a string. You're also supposed to make tags with just your hands, palm to palm. There's a lot of rules that they don't really follow.
Yeah, exactly.
I kind of feel like that's gone by the wayside now. You just want to see what the people can do. That's what I was
That
talking
is
about.
the first time I've ever heard someone make a complaint about the rules in a tag match. I'm being totally
What are you
honest.
talking
I've
about?
never heard anyone make a complaint.
WWE
And, like,
too perfectly though.
That's why you gotta
We
look
sit
back.
here and we complain in the group chat about storylines. We talk about match quality, but never in my wrestling history of watching wrestling, and I've been watching wrestling for the last 30 plus years, no one has ever made a complaint about tag team.
Well, thanks AEW for that. Thanks to Lucha Bros for that. Okay, they don't follow the rules. Please, I get it. Your match is entertaining, but
I'm
follow
sorry,
the
if you see
rules.
Ray Phoenix
Please,
do
you're
a
burying the
couple
refs.
of the
I feel
top
so
rope
bad for
before
every
how
single
long
ref
into the
there.
ring for,
Aubrey,
that's
who's the
not-
youngest, she's the one that does the best job, and it's like, oh man, come on, refs, don't let yourselves get buried, please.
Yeah, they get buried.
I'm-
There's more refs that are over than any other company. Tell me, do you know the refs that when you're watching Monday Night Raw by name? Every single one of them? No.
Yeah, but they're getting buried. Even Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho went on record. No, but even Chris Jericho went on record, and he talked to every single tag team. He's like, guys, we can't do this. This is before FTR came. He's like, guys, we can't do this. We're burying the refs. You guys have to do the rules. Pay attention to the rules. This is Chris Jericho, the legend. He's saying to them. He even stands up to Lucha Bros. He's like, listen, you got to pay attention.
Mike's
Do
not
the
wrong.
rules.
Mike,
That's
you're
it.
not wrong. You're not wrong because
Chris Jericho said that, yeah.
I mean, they already have as little as possible as it is. What? I didn't say anything. I was looking this way, but you're not wrong. I mean, not too many people complain about it. It's not something that I think of generally, but there are rules that you are supposed to enforce, and that's how a bad guy would get heat, by breaking those rules, by staying in there too long and beating up on the guy when he's supposed to leave. You know. So, but I mean, that's real classic old school stuff there. That's
When a legend complains about it, then you know something is wrong.
That'll do it for the sports hit list by the fans and for the fans. I have nothing else left to say.
What?
We're running up on time. It's 5
Just
o'clock.
imagine if Zach was
I have
here.
nothing else to say. I will continue this debate with Mike later on in the group chat. I expect
Oh,
me
God.
to go off and make it a separate segment. Thank you for watching us by the fans for the fans. Please make sure you like, share, comment, subscribe to all of our content all over social media. Next week we'll talk some WWE. What's that pay-per-view coming up? Guys, help me out here.
Extreme Rules.
Extreme Rules. We'll have our prediction show for that for Wrestling
Zach will be
Wednesday.
here next week.
Zach will not be here because Zach is still suspended. Zach comes back when
Zach
I
will
tell
not
him
be
to
here,
come
okay.
back. And you guys take care. You guys please continue to stay safe. And we'll talk soon. Thank you to the Worldwide Sports Radio Network for the opportunity. And take care.